Psychedelic attorney Greg Lake here, and I've got one hell of a story for you, right? I testified as an expert in a criminal DMT trial in a very conservative jurisdiction and was able to help secure an acquittal on behalf of my client. Now, here's the real kicker, right? Here is the real kicker. The client actually admitted on the stand to doing DMT extraction and consumption, okay? But when it came down to it, the jury obviously did not acquit him based upon the evidence. They acquitted him based upon the community conscience and what they felt was right for even their admittedly conservative jurisdiction. I don't know. We're going to unpack all this, right? But again, this all hinges on an element of American law that people aren't very much aware of, but need to be aware of, but actually happened in this case. And so I just think all these elements are really great. There's some twists and turns in the story. Welcome to the Theo SK YouTube channel. Again, I'm psychedelic attorney Greg Lake. Usual disclaimer, this video has nothing to do with promoting, advertising, endorsing, or encouraging you to use any illicit substance, and always follow the laws. Let's hop right in. So how did this happen? Well, as a psychedelic attorney, many people know my emphasis has really been on the religious aspect of psychedelic law, freedom of religion. However, part of that also entails me knowing a ton about the science, the medical aspects, and the chemistry, okay? So just to lay that out there. Through my career, I have come across and befriended many well-credentialed medical doctors and researchers, okay? And on a day, it was probably mid-2023, I got contacted by one of these doctors who said he had gotten authorization from his patient to refer them to me because they had a situation that ended up in a DMT and psilocybin possession charge, okay? Now, the incident, I'll just lay it out there for you. The guy had a bad day. He made an incident outside of his apartment. He did not hurt anybody, but he made a scene. Cops were called. One thing led to another. Cops bust into his apartment and they find psilocybin mushrooms and DMT in the process of being extracted out of root bark material. Okay, so that was the situation that I was handed, and I talked to the client. Really good guy. I believed everything he told me. I did believe he was doing these things for spiritual, religious purposes on his own accord. I did not believe that he was distributing this or trying to profit off this in any way. Just his own personal thing. And eventually, I'll say when I got the discovery, it matched everything he was telling me. Anyways, I got in touch with him. I got in touch with his trial lawyer, local trial lawyer, because at first the idea was maybe I'll help represent him in court. I'm licensed in the jurisdiction. Or am I going to serve as an expert? And through talking with his very good trial lawyer, by the way, very good trial lawyer, we came to find out that it would be best, initially, we wanted to assert a religious defense under state law, which, according to the statute, there should have been no reason why he wouldn't have been able to. More on that in a minute. But that was our original plan, right? So in order to prepare for that as an expert, just so y'all know, I have to interview the client, review all the criminal discovery from the prosecutor's office. I didn't have to really question any witnesses in this, but had to get all the information together. And then I think I drafted probably like an 80 to 120 page expert report. I know, I was showboating a little bit. I'm sorry. But, you know, I get it really hyped up in these things. Like anywhere between 80 to 100, I think, page expert report on the religious aspect of what this client was doing. And we had also preliminarily lined up the doctor who symptom was potentially going to testify as the psychedelic health and safety chemistry expert, because in this case, there were a couple issues with the state's case that we'll get into for a second. But for this time, just know that was the plan, right? So I fly to the jurisdiction to show up for the trial. Come to find out, my doctor buddy was unable to make it to testify at trial at that time, okay? And so at first we're looking at, okay, well, maybe we're not going to have a health safety expert, but we're going to do the religious freedom thing. And so, I mean, that's all we had at that point. Let's do what we can do. Unfortunately, the day before trial, pre-trial motions, judge denies, and again, I completely disagree with this decision, but it is what it is. This happens, right? Judge denied my client's right to assert religious freedom defense to these charges, okay, under state law. And so, man, what do we do then, right? Then, and my client's just kind of sitting there bare without any good expert testimony to either attack the state's case or to build up this religious freedom defense, okay? So the trial lawyer and I the trial lawyer and myself, we get to, you know, jiving it up out there in the hallway, figuring out what we're going to do. He's a very smart man, very good attorney. And, you know, we figured out, I said, look, probably half of my practice, this is no lie, half of my practice, my career in the space has literally been on the scientific medical research side, because it just bleeds so much, and we'll get this later videos, but it bleeds so much into, the religious aspect. It's inseparable in many ways. And so you can be qualified as an expert. Like, even though I wasn't like a psychedelic research medical expert, through my training and basically my vocation, the judge, just so y'all know, ended up accepting me as a general expert in psychedelic health, safety, and chemistry. And so in order to make that happen, let's pull back real quick. I basically had to overnight redo my whole report. I had most of the research in my hard drive, so it's like pulling up the research, redrafting my report, and then submitting it the next day, and then doing a voir dire process where the attorneys and judge kind of question me about my credentials, my opinions, stuff like that. And judge approved me. Judge approved me. Look, it's a comeback kid story like you wouldn't believe. It's one of the proudest times I've ever performed under pressure that I'm proud of, just to say. And especially with the result that we got. Super proud of it, but we'll get there in a minute. And so the judge accepted me as an expert. Now let's talk real quick about what I was going to be challenging as an expert in psychedelic health, safety, and chemistry in this current case. One, so the government wanted to really overplay the safety hazards associated with DMT extraction, okay? In particular, there is, they made an issue out of one solvent. I'm not going to name it because this has nothing to do with teaching anybody how to extract DMT. But yeah, so there's one certain solvent that's used in the process, which is generally widely available pretty much at every hardware store, Walmart, Lowe's, maybe the grocery stores, some grocery stores. But anyways, the way that it's used in the process of making DMT is in sealed mason jars most times, right? Well, you can buy it off the shelf at the store in like a tin can with like a flip cap, okay? So obviously this solvent is no more dangerous on the store shelf than it is in my client's apartment, yet you ask the government, it's a whole meth lab. Oh my God, so dangerous, it's a meth lab, right? So that was overplay number one. So I had to set that straight in the report, or at least in my testimony. And then number two, this is where the real banger comes, okay? The allegation was that there was, I think, approximately, because they never found any real fully processed extracted DMT, dimethyltryptamine, right? But what they did find were jars with still the root bark, the plant material, extracting it out of that in his freezer, right? And they also found some other root bark powder in the house. Total root bark powder, I think, in his whole entire house might have been maybe half a kilo, maybe 1,000 grams, 1,200 grams or something. So that'll be important in a minute. So anyways, when the DEA lab report comes back, it says that, well, this solution would have produced 28 dry grams. Okay, so let me just tell you all real quick. No. I went, and I knew this from the start, right? Because I'd read the police reports, everything they got. I knew that there's absolutely zero way you would have ever gotten 28 dried grams out of that. And I'll go into that a little bit further here. So really, fighting those two elements, particularly on the weight, right? Very meaningful here. Fighting those two elements, and then I'll say too in a minute, I also provided some other stuff in my testimony, just helpful to get the jury understand exactly what DMT is, that I think was pretty impactful on them. But anyway, so I haven't testified yet. I'm obviously outside the courtroom. As an expert, they provoke what's called the rule, meaning if you're a witness or expert that's later going to testify, you can't sit in there and listen to everybody's testimony and then, fix yours up in the interim. So apparently, though, what had happened in the meantime, and just so you know, the trial lawyer was prepared to attack the chemist, right? Just based off what I had said in the research I had showed him, okay? Here was a manna from heaven, I guess, if you ask my client, but one of the investigators from the government got up there and said, 1 kilogram of root bark will get you about a gram of DMT extraction, right? So you're sitting there thinking, okay, so you're saying twice the amount that our client had would only get you 1 gram, but somehow the DEA people done said he got 28, out of this. Doesn't really match up, right? So that obviously carried into the lab technician's testimony, and the trial lawyer, who's very good, by the way, pretty much from what I take it, tore him up, right? Tore him up pretty good, okay? And so then we switch over to the defense case, right? So I was pretty much the main witness, aside from our client in the defense case. And actually, I believe he testified after me, admitting to everything, but brought me up first. And if I remember correctly, I really immediately went into, to be honest with y'all, one of the first things we went into was that DMT is endogenous to our human brains, meaning jurors, all of y'all, and I didn't say this directly, but all of y'all also have DMT. It's in your body. Which, I think was something we decided to do in order to really get people to step down for a second on this DMT thing, right? Because the DMT charge was going to put our client in prison for potentially 20 years. The psilocybin, this other thing, slid off on probation. He did slide off on probation. The client did. So good deal. But the DMT was a big deal, right? And so we really had to come correct on talking to the jury here. And just so we're clear, I'm very familiar with this jurisdiction. People in that jurisdiction, I guess resonate with me, right, for a number of different reasons. But anyway, so then we go into, oh man, they overplayed the thing here. This is, not saying nothing's inherently fully safe, right? But like meth lab, no, it's just not a straight-faced comparison. It's not something a reasonable, valid person who knows anything about any of this would be able to look someone in the eyes and make in good faith. Okay? And that happens sometimes in court. People do make statements out of good faith or just complete ignorance and mislead jurors all the time. But anyways, I got to set the record straight there. And then we went on into the weighing thing. So just so we're aware, because of what the investigator had said about 1 kilo, I didn't have to go into too much explanation there, right? Other than to say, I've scrubbed all the academic literature, both on the concentration of dimethyltryptamine throughout different plant and other, species of organisms around the world, and also familiar with extraction techniques and general yields in these things. And even if you had the highest concentration of DMT in a plant source ever discovered, and you were the best extractor who spent a ton of time doing it, 2 grams max, maybe. 28 grams, there's just no possible way, right? And the investigator's testimony helped prove that up, right? Because, so again, this wasn't on me, right? This was not on me. Now, I'll talk about what the jury said afterwards when they were polled, but I just want to make sure, give credit where it's due. Thank you, investigator. Thank you, Mr. DEA lab technician. Where you got the 28, I don't know, but it was so outlandish that it was super easy to convince the jury. He was full of it, and you couldn't justify it when we got into court. So thank you for that. Thank you, and thank you to the trial lawyer again. He's really good. But anyway, so then I kind of so on the distribution part of it, right? That's where I kind of ended and was able to a little bit insert some of the spiritual religious science about DMT, right, that we've discussed a lot on already on this channel. And I just told, I was talking to the trial lawyer, but essentially talking to the jury, not directly, obviously, but that, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, effectuates this is scientifically verified, primary religious mystical experiences of very profound value at a very high rate. And in my professional opinion, then as it stands today, is that if someone tells me that they're using DMT recreationally or any other way than like a spiritual, personal development, religious use, that's odd. That is very odd to me, and seems with someone with much further problems beyond just doing DMT. Okay, and that's just the truth of it. And I think any of my viewers out here who understand what I'm saying will probably agree. And so I just told the jury that, and I just told them, based upon my conversation with the client, evidence in the record that the police had confiscated, I just didn't see, they had no evidence that he had ever distributed. I saw nothing to indicate that he distributed. And in fact, his testimony to me prior to my report indicated that he was doing it solely for his personal spiritual use. He had actually overcome alcohol with it, ladies and gentlemen. So, that was the thing. And so anyways, I remember that day after I got up, my client testified. I didn't sit in there for that just because I didn't want him to get, because we got kind of close over it. I get close with clients sometimes like that. He's a really good dude. And so I just let him do his thing up there. But he admitted to everything, right? He admitted to everything he did. He admitted to causing the scene. He admitted to having the mushrooms for personal spiritual use and extracting DMT for personal spiritual use. Jury goes back and deliberates. And they come back, and yes, they did find him guilty on causing the scene. They found him guilty on possessing psilocybin. No go. on the DMT charge. So you got to ask yourself, well, what happened there? And, let me explain this to y'all. So really what happened is that he wasn't acquitted on the evidence. He was acquitted by the community's conscience, what we call jury nullification, meaning that you as an American have a right, if you're ever impaneled on a jury, if you just don't feel morally correct with the law and the evidence in some way that does not, your conscience does not let you put this person in prison or punish them over this, you have the right to hold out. You have the right to hold out. And that's what happened on that charge. And it was a unanimous holdout, by the way. And I guess this will go into the subsequent jury polling and questioning. Yes, they gave a lot of credence to my testimony on all counts. They also did not like the fact that they were called away from their jobs and their people to try to throw this guy in prison for 20 years on this DMT charge when the government couldn't even keep its own case together. Right? They had the investigators saying, 1 kilo gets you 1 gram. Somehow there's 28 grams dried from only like 1,200 grams of rhubarb powder. Okay. So it was a whole combination of things. But the jury, in all fairness, did give a lot of weight and credence to my testimony in that regard in coming to their decisions. Right? And again, just my reading, I didn't know the people on the jury. I did not know them. But I swear, y'all, I think 9 of them had to have been soccer moms, like conservative soccer moms, minivan and everything, right? All right, or Tahoe or Suburban, whatever. And God bless them. God bless them. God bless them. So, yeah, that was the kind of story. Now, y'all know me. I'm a fool. Man, walking out of there, going to get back on a plane to go home, like nobody could tell me nothing. Man, it was one of the most exciting times of my life, to be quite honest with you, just because of all the hard work and dedication we put into it and, fighting the fight against these unjust drug laws. That's what I do. And so I'm very proud of that. And, again, results may vary. Don't think that, just because I was able to do that, in this case, I'm able to go to every jury around de country and do a whoop-de-whoop and do this. But just to let y'all know that has happened before. And I've got another couple good stories coming for y'all on the psychedelic litigation front, because it's been a wild ride. It's been exciting. Wins come where they can, and I like to share them with y'all. I hope y'all like this video. I might insert some images in it. I don't know. But I just wanted to give y'all the story. Again, if you made it this far, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. If you have the bandwidth to like and maybe subscribe to the channel, would be very grateful. Again, I got tons more of this stuff, y'all. I've been doing this stuff full time for 6 years. I've got a lot. Got a lot of research, got a lot of stories, got a lot of anecdotes, and hopefully we can all learn to come together in community and learn and grow along the way, right? That'd be cool. Anyways, much love to y'all. Y'all have a blessed week, and I'll be back here in a couple days with another video. So hit that subscribe button and be looking for it. Much love.